This is the LAMZU ATLANTIS, a reasonably priced, high-performance, wireless gaming mouse that is the surprise smash hit of 2022's gaming mouse world. A mouse so good that many reviewers are probably going to be calling this one of the best gaming mice released in 2022. It's a mouse no one saw coming, but because it shares so many similarities with the Endgame Gear XM1's shape, many people herald it as the XM1 wireless that you can actually buy, since the XM1 wireless keeps getting delayed. It was promised in Q1 of this year, but it's already November and it's still nowhere to be found. Because of that, it's a very popular option now for people to recommend, but for people who are fans of the Endgame Gear XM1's shape, looking for a wireless alternative, I'll actually say beware, because I am a XM1 fanboy, and I don't actually like the LAMZU ATLANTIS, even though it seems from a distance that they are absolutely and completely identical. Because there are some subtle, though possibly deal-breaking differences between the LAMZU ATLANTIS and the Endgame Gear XM1 shape that might make you not like the LAMZU ATLANTIS, even though you love the Endgame Gear XM1, and even though they are still very similar overall. So in this video, I'm going to tell you whether you should or should not buy the LAMZU ATLANTIS, and for people who already love the XM1 shape, I'm going to point out some things so you can consider whether you should wait for the XM1 wireless or just get a LAMZU ATLANTIS and be done with it. So then, is the LAMZU ATLANTIS' shape a good alternative? Well, let's point out the main differences here for existing XM1 lovers or people who are familiar with the XM1 shape. It shares a lot of the philosophies that define the Endgame Gear XM1. Got a really low click position that makes for a very comfortable click posture, a very comfortable angle for your fingers to rest and to click, which is great for claw or fingertip grippers who are gripping the mouse with very angled fingers like this. It's also got the overall rather flat shape with minimal amount of grooves on the left, right, top or bottom. And it's also about the same height, same width, same length, and for about the same hand sizes. For smaller hands, it's going to be a great mouse to palm grip or to claw grip. For medium to large hands, the LAMZU ATLANTIS is a great mouse to claw or fingertip grip, just like with the Endgame Gear XM1. But there are some subtle differences here that are going to be deal breakers for some people, me included. These are the reasons why I don't actually like the LAMZU ATLANTIS and elected to go with the Pulsar X2 as my daily driver instead of this mouse, even though the XM1 is still my favorite mouse shape of all time. For one, the bump on the back of the mouse, the part where you rest your palm, has been moved forward on the LAMZU ATLANTIS. It's also a bit taller than on the Endgame Gear XM1. This means that my hand feels like there's a little bump protruding into it, which just feels very restrictive and uncomfortable. It means that my hand often ends up hanging off the back of the mouse for a more comfortable grip than on top of the mouse, which is how I prefer to hold a mouse. Some people don't care, and some people actually prefer a more centered and taller mouse bump, which is why the G Pro Wireless has one. But for me, I absolutely cannot stand it. I feel it just gets in the way and feels very uncomfortable. Another important difference between the LAMZU ATLANTIS and the XM1 is the sides. The LAMZU ATLANTIS is a little bit wider than the Endgame Gear XM1, especially at the upper top lip of the sides of the mouse. The Endgame Gear XM1 is narrower, which means it's a lot easier to pinch and pick up in my opinion, especially if your hands are like just on the limit of being too small for the mouse. And the sharper edge and sleeker, narrower sides on the Endgame Gear XM1 feel a lot more satisfying and a lot easier to pinch and grip. Whereas the LAMZU ATLANTIS' width does make it feel a bit fat and puffy and a bit ungainly to pick up and hold comfortably, at least for my hands. It might be a deal breaker for some, but some might actually see it as an improvement. Another thing is that the slope of the sides of the mouse on the LAMZU ATLANTIS are a little bit more steeply angled inwards as it goes down than the Endgame Gear XM1, where the sides are a little bit more vertical. Now these are all seemingly small differences. Added all together, they do make for a rather distinctly different grip and feel in the hand than the XM1. This means while the LAMZU ATLANTIS will work for the same people who like the Endgame Gear XM1, the feel won't be exactly the same. And if what you're looking for is exactly the same feel as the XM1, but with wireless technology, then you probably should just wait for the XM1 wireless, because it should be coming out soon. It's already been delayed for a year. Now the differences are admittedly subtle and really subjective whether you like them or not. I just wanted to make sure that people who are coming from the XM1 or people who are fan of the XM1 shape don't go out and blindly buy the LAMZU ATLANTIS thinking it's a one-for-one XM1 replacement, just wireless with modern technology, because it really isn't. These subtle differences do add up and do make for a notably different experience. But if you're someone that doesn't mind having a slightly different feeling mouse, so long as it has similar principles and similar concepts and similar feel as the XM1, then the LAMZU ATLANTIS is definitely a mouse you should consider, especially because it's got some of the best wireless technology you can get your hands on. It's got a 3395 sensor on the bottom, Pixar's top of the line with motion sync tech, which means it's very consistent in its polling, it's very consistent in its tracking, and it's going to perform basically as well as even the Viper V2 Pro. The clicks are some of the best best clicks I've ever used on any mouse ever invented. It's light, it's well tensioned, it's crisp, and it's consistent throughout. So even if you're fingertip gripping the back, it feels very easy to click, which is a very good thing. These use Huano switches, by the way, so if you're coming for Omrons, they're going to feel pretty similar, just with a slightly lower pitch. The scroll wheel is a TTC gold encoder with the fat rubber wheel around it, which I appreciate because it makes for a very grippy, easy time. Although I do find that the snappiness of the scroll wheel is not as light and as crisp as the Pulsar X2, though that comparison video is coming really soon, so if you want to see a comparison between the X2 and the LAMZU ATLANTIS, make sure you subscribe for that. The side clicks are also very good, very light, very crisp. The mouse is also extremely light at 55 grams, but despite having holes in the bottom and it being so light, it still feels extremely well built with no cricks and no QC issues that I can tell. The coating, on the other hand, is kind of garbage. It's one of the most slippery mice I've ever used in my life, and it's nowhere near as good as the coating on the Endgame Gear XM1 or the G Pro Wireless, though apparently the black color LAMZU ATLANTIS is a bit better on this front. It also tracks really well across basically any mousepad that I've used it on, with these pretty healthily sized PTFE feet. And in terms of design, it looks really nice as well, especially in this blue and pink colorway, though many people might disagree. If you're scared of saturation and color and contrast and standing out because you are boring, then you can also get it in white, black, or mint, which are all reasonably nice colors, though this looks absolutely sick and makes for a better thumbnail, which is kind of why I picked it. On the bottom, by the way, there's this little butterfly emblem, which is kind of cute. And also on the bottom you find the power switch as well as a DPI changing button. As far as performance goes, every single reviewer that has tested the LAMZU ATLANTIS has had zero complaints. It's snappy, it's fast, no latency, and no problem whatsoever. The only benchmark where it really loses out on is click latency. It has a slightly slower than Viper V2 Pro click latency by 1 millisecond, which is absolutely not noticeable because the clicks on here are so well tensioned that they actually feel faster than on the V2 Pro. That plus the fact that nobody on earth can detect a 1 millisecond difference in click latency. It's just the truth. In my experience as well, battery life on the LAMZU ATLANTIS has been pretty decent. I could use it for a good 2 to 3 days of about 4 to 5 games a day, and I have no issues with the battery life on this. It won't die on you mid-game so long as you're charging it semi-consistently. All in all then, should you buy the LAMZU ATLANTIS? Well, if you're an Endgame Gear XM1 fanboy and what you're looking for is essentially a XM1 wireless, but you can actually buy, I'm sorry, you have to keep waiting for the official XM1 wireless, because there are some subtle though notable differences that do make the LAMZU ATLANTIS a different experience. Not a worse experience, just a different experience, and for people whose favorite shape is the XM1, I'm quite confident that you might find the LAMZU ATLANTIS a little bit too different for your tastes. But for everyone else, for medium to large hands trying to claw or fingertip grip, for smaller hands trying to palm grip, the LAMZU ATLANTIS is a very, very good, very competent mouse. It's got great specs, great performance, and a great price at $90 US, making it $60 US cheaper than the G Pro X Superlight. It is a very unique shape, a very comfortable shape, and a very, very good quality gaming mouse. It's got basically anything anyone would ever want from a wireless gaming mouse if the shape is right for you. Unfortunately, the shape isn't quite right for me because I don't like big, tall humps on my gaming mouse, which is why I don't like the DeathFeather V3 Pro. But if you think the shape is right for you, then the LAMZU ATLANTIS is definitely a gaming mouse you should be checking out, and definitely one that should be near the top of your list when considering what wireless gaming mouse you should get. But there is one problem for the LAMZU ATLANTIS, and that is the Pulsar X2 exists. It's not objectively better of a gaming mouse than the LAMZU ATLANTIS, but both serve a very similar audience, both are good for the same type of gamers, and both are similarly priced, super high performance gaming mice. So which one should you pick? Well, this video is getting a bit too long, so if you want to know whether you should choose between the Pulsar X2 or the LAMZU ATLANTIS, make sure you subscribe, because a comparison between this and that is coming really, really soon, and I think it's a comparison you should watch, because those two are some of the best gaming mice released this year that you definitely want to be considering if you're shopping for a brand new wireless gaming mouse. And with that, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys literally tomorrow. Bye.